She didn't belong there. That was the first thing people thought when she walked into the Redline training center. Not because she did anything wrong, but because she didn't fit the image they were used to seeing. The lobby gleamed with brushed steel and LED accents like a set built for a high-end fitness reality show. Every corner of the room seemed designed to reflect power, performance, and influence. She walked past it all in silence, wearing a gray hoodie, no logos, no sound, no story. No one asked her name. A clipboard was shoved toward her like a receipt tray. Two students nearby chuckled under their breath, sharing a glance that said more than words ever could. She tied a white belt around her waist with a precision that looked practiced, not flashy, just exact. Someone muttered that she looked like a yoga mom who wandered into the wrong building. Nobody knew who she was. Nobody cared. The only thing they saw was a woman with no background, no ranking, and no reason to be there. And yet in just a few minutes they'd all fall silent. Because she wasn't there for show. She wasn't there to win applause. She was there for something else entirely. Something they weren't ready to see. The cameras were ready. The announcer had his lines rehearsed. The match was already written in their minds. But this story wasn't going to follow the script. In a space built for performance, the quietest person in the room was about to become the only one anyone remembered. Not because of what she said, but because of what she didn't need to say at all. Her name didn't ring any bells. No one looked up when she signed in. There was no buzz, no whispered curiosity. No one scrolling their phone to find her profile. On paper, she was just a walk-in. On the screen, just another white belt. On the clipboard, barely a name. But the woman standing in the middle of that spotless dojo had a presence that didn't need approval. Kayla Wright was in her mid-30s. She didn't dress to impress. Her hoodie was a little faded at the sleeves, the kind you keep because it's never let you down. Her leggings were functional, not fashionable. Her sneakers had flattened soles and quiet steps. Over one shoulder hung a duffel bag whose seams curled like pages long read. No logo, no color pop, just silence and fabric worn in all the right places. She wasn't beautiful in the way people there expected. Not sharp-lined, camera-ready, or filtered. She looked like someone who had more important things to do than rehearse her appearance. Her hair was tied back without care. Her eyes didn't scan the room for recognition. She walked like someone used to going unnoticed. But she carried herself like someone who'd learned that quiet is not the same as small. This was a place built on attention. Every belt came with a bio, every match with a hashtag, every athlete with a social presence. But Kayla had none of it. No ranking, no interviews, no trailer. She just stood there calm and centered in a building full of people trying to outshine each other. People assumed that meant weakness. That maybe she lacked experience or confidence or reason to be there at all. But what they didn't see was the stillness inside her. Not emptiness. Containment. Like a closed fist or a drawn bow. Something waiting, but not waiting for them. There's a particular type of strength that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't pose. It doesn't compare. It just watches, listens, stores up energy in quiet corners until the moment calls for it. That was the kind of strength Kayla carried. She wasn't trying to prove anything. She wasn't chasing validation. She wasn't there to change minds. She was simply there to do what she came to do. And when the time came, she would do it without apology and without permission. But in that moment, she was just a woman sitting at the edge of the mat, adjusting her gloves, tucking her fingers into the wraps like she'd done it 1,000 times, breathing steady, letting the noise pass over her like weather. No one knew what was inside that silence. They wouldn't know until later. Much later. When they finally realized that the woman with no bio had just rewritten the whole story. Not with words, but with the stillness she never tried to explain. Redline wasn't really a dojo. Not in the way you'd imagine one. It didn't smell like sweat or echo with the sounds of bodies hitting the mat. It smelled like expensive candles and editing software. The floors were polished to a shine that made you walk differently. The mats looked more like props than surfaces meant for impact. Every corner of the place seemed less about training and more about angles. Overhead camera rigs floated like mechanical birds, capturing every stance from 3 directions. Spotlights weren't for visibility. They were for drama. The lighting changed tone depending on who was in the ring, not what was happening there. Even the ambient music was curated, shifting from chill lo-fi to synthetic tension, depending on what part of the match was being filmed. A digital leaderboard glowed beside the trophy wall, animated every few minutes like a stock ticker. The higher you ranked, the more your name blinked. Stats scrolled in perfect sync with the commentary piped in from directional speakers overhead. Everything had a filter, even the silence. The students weren't athletes. They were influencers with gear deals and branded hashtags. They gave interviews between drills, adjusted their hair before a sparring match, and posted slow-motion kicks mid-session. Coaches spent more time filming on tablets than correcting form. You didn't win respect there. You earned screen time. Newcomers weren't tested. They were cast. Trials were public, but not for fairness. They were designed to give the top ranks easy wins and high-production highlights. White belts weren't welcomed. They were called padding, fresh faces to fill the ring so the champions could spin, shout, and finish them off on cue. The golden boy was Dylan Fox, undefeated, well-lit, and always centered. His fights were choreographed without being called that. His opponents chosen for optics, not challenge. Someone too tall, someone too unsure, someone who looked like they didn't belong. Then the crowd got to watch him knock them down and say something clever into the mic. It was theater, and everyone in the building knew their lines, except maybe for the people who weren't supposed to speak at all. You couldn't just walk into Redline and earn respect. You had to look the part, dress the part, move like you already had followers waiting. The staff didn't correct you if you were wrong. They just stopped filming. The hierarchy wasn't built on skill. It was built on performance. Belt color meant less than how well you played to the camera. Nobody cared if your form was clean. They cared if your face stayed camera-friendly during a high kick. And still people came. Not to learn, to be seen, to be included, to be approved of. The moment Kayla stepped in, they knew she didn't belong. No visual branding, no matching gear, no bio or backstory to pin to her name. The system didn't know what to do with her, so it treated her like an error, like static in a high-definition feed. The worst thing you could be in Redline was unremarkable. Kayla didn't just break that rule. She walked in like it never applied to her, and the studio so carefully engineered to filter out anything unpolished didn't realize it was already recording the only moment anyone would remember. Because in a place where everything was staged, she arrived unrehearsed. In a room full of actors, she came to tell the truth. The clipboard was handed to her like it didn't matter. No eye contact, no name check, just a stack of waivers passed across the counter like a takeout menu. The guy behind the desk didn't even pause his conversation, already assuming she was in the wrong place. She signed quietly. No questions, no corrections. Someone glanced at the spelling of her name and shrugged like it wasn't worth getting right. A few steps later, another coach looked her up and down and laughed under his breath. She heard it. Everyone heard it, but no one thought she would respond. They handed her a pair of gloves that didn't fit. Loose at the wrist, uneven in padding like leftovers from a forgotten box. There was a full rack of equipment 10 feet away, but no one reached for it. These were the gloves she got, because no one cared who she was. Her belt was white, not because she didn't know what she was doing, but because she didn't offer any proof. She tied it with perfect symmetry, the knot flat and balanced. Someone joked about it like she was playing dress-up. A student near the wall smirked and whispered something about her looking like a yoga mom. Phones angled in her direction, not to honor her but to mock her. A photo here, a chuckle there. Each small gesture meant to reinforce what they believed, that she didn't matter, that she was nobody, that she had no business being in their ring. She didn't speak. She didn't flinch. She just sat near the edge of the mat and started checking the seams of her gloves, each movement deliberate, each breath steady, like she had all the time in the world and none of it belonged to them. They pointed. They laughed. One of the junior coaches said it out loud as if he wanted her to hear it, that she looked like someone's aunt here for free cardio. It got a few laughs. It always does when people think they're safe inside the circle of the accepted. But she didn't answer them. She didn't need to. Her silence wasn't timid. It was sharp, intentional, like a wire pulled tight. Not because it might break, but because it was holding something in place. She was placed at the bottom of the lineup. No stats, no background. Just her name blinking on the screen with the words "walk in" beside it. No one asked if she'd trained. No one asked what she came for. They had already decided. She warmed up in a corner of the room near the mop closet. Not on the mat. Not near the cameras. Just a forgotten piece of vinyl floor half hidden behind some boxes. It wasn't a mistake. It was the space they thought she deserved. She stayed there without complaint, stretching, focusing, wrapping her wrists again like it was a ritual she trusted more than people. No one offered help. No one offered space. They just waited for her to fail. But what none of them saw, what they never even thought to look for, was that Kayla didn't need their approval. She didn't even need their attention. All she needed was the moment. And it was already coming. Her name appeared at the very bottom of the fight card. No school listed, no rank, just a match number and a single label walk-in. They didn't even spell her name right. No one cared enough to ask. To them, she was just a placeholder, just another white belt added to make the lineup look full. The match was scheduled last, always reserved for a knockout finale, the kind that brought in views and sent the crowd home satisfied. And her opponent wasn't just anyone. It was Dylan Fox, Redline's undefeated showpiece, a fighter built for highlight reels and viral clips. The entire setup was deliberate. Trials at Redline weren't tests. They were showcases. A white belt at the end of the day meant one thing. She was the sacrificial round, the easy takedown that made Dylan look unstoppable. They didn't choose her because she was ready. They chose her because they thought she wouldn't matter. She was there to fall, to fold, to give the audience that rush of superiority, a knockdown dressed as entertainment. A junior coach handed her faulty gloves and smiled like he already knew the outcome. He said they were the only ones left, even though shelves of gear stood untouched behind him. The message wasn't subtle. She was not worth the real equipment. No one prepped her. No one checked her name. No one even confirmed the rules. Her tile on the projection wall said walk-in, no stats, no belt history, no background. She wasn't expected to fight. She was expected to lose. Dylan's segment was already being hyped on social media. KO Countdown started trending before she even stepped on the mat. Clips of him warming up had better production value than most full fights. Meanwhile, Kayla sat alone in a corner, left out of the pre-match photo. The system had already written the ending. The audience wasn't there to be surprised. They were there to feel comfortable. She wasn't an opponent. She was a prop, a human backdrop for someone else's triumph. And in a place where losing was supposed to be predictable, no one thought twice about what would happen if the story didn't go as planned. Kayla sat near the back wall away from the cameras and crowd. Her knees rested on the mat, her hands moving slowly over her gloves. She wasn't rushing. She wasn't watching anyone else. She was just breathing. Her fingers traced each seam like she'd done it 1,000 times, not checking for damage, just making sure everything felt right. She adjusted the straps, tightened them again, then tested her wrists with small twists. Her breath stayed low and even. Around her, the noise kept growing. Students lining up near the ring coaches, laughing, a drone camera hovering above. None of it touched her. She didn't flinch. She didn't look up. Her focus was deep, not from pressure, but from habit. Someone joked a few feet away, loud enough to carry. Something about waivers. Something about mercy. Another voice added to it, trying to get a laugh. But Kayla didn't react. Her silence wasn't awkward. It was complete. She pulled one glove tighter and checked the fit again. A slow inhale, a slower exhale. Her posture never shifted. Her shoulders stayed relaxed, her spine straight. She wasn't hyping herself up. She was settling in. This was her ritual. A calm before motion. A quiet rhythm that belonged to no one but her. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even noticeable if you weren't paying attention. But the ones who did notice couldn't explain it. They just knew she didn't look nervous. People thought stillness meant fear, but Kayla's stillness was something else. It held weight, like she had already moved through the nerves and left them behind. A coach walked past without seeing her. Another kicked aside a towel near her knee. No one gave her space. No one asked if she needed anything. She remained untouched by all of it, grounded in something they didn't understand. When the announcer called her name mispronounced and careless, she didn't flinch. She stood slowly, not with hesitation, with intention. Her hands dropped to her sides and she walked toward the ring like it wasn't a performance, like it was just the next step in something already decided. She didn't make a sound. She didn't need to. Because while everyone else was busy preparing their image, Kayla had already prepared herself. Just breathing, just waiting. And the moment was almost here. The bell sounded sharp and clean. Dylan moved first, fast and confident, his footwork loud on the mat. A jab came quick, followed by a spinning fake meant to impress the crowd. Kayla didn't flinch. She didn't block. She slid half a step back, quiet as breath. He circled again. She mirrored him, always just outside his reach, never falling into his rhythm. His strikes got wider, his shouts louder. She stayed calm, weight low hands, steady. She hadn't thrown a single punch. From the crowd, someone whispered it. Not off balance. Not once. The words hung in the air like a warning. Dylan kept moving, but the rhythm was slipping. His timing stretched. His face flushed. Another combo flew sharp and practiced. She dipped under it, no wasted motion. Reset again, clean and silent. Dylan grunted now, putting more power behind every swing. But none of them touched her. She didn't dodge like she was scared. She moved like she knew the answers before he asked. Like she'd been here before. His breathing picked up. His steps got heavier. The match was slipping and no one could say why. A coach leaned forward. His expression was tight now. No more smirking. The audience had gone quiet. Phones still in hand, but no one filming anymore. Not out of boredom. Out of confusion. Dylan lunged. Kayla shifted. Every movement precise like choreography only she knew. The gap between them never closed, because she controlled it. She set the pace. She controlled the space. Not a single hit had landed, not even close. But somehow she was in control. Like she wasn't just avoiding strikes. Like she was showing him where to aim and letting him miss. There was no noise from her. No reaction. Just breath. Just stillness between movements. It was a kind of power no one in that room had seen before, and they were just starting to realize it. The ring timer blinked. 7 seconds left. Dylan planted his back foot hard, winding up for the move everyone knew by heart. It was his signature. A spinning hook kick, sharp and fast, the kind that made crowds cheer before it even landed. His body turned. His arms snapped into place. The camera drone tracked every frame, already ready to clip the finish. But Kayla didn't step back. She stepped forward. No panic. No rush. Her weight dropped. Her knees bent just enough. She caught his leg mid-spin with one hand, gentle and controlled, just above the ankle. Her other hand slid forward, palm open, and pressed into his chest. Not a strike. A transfer. His motion stopped. Just like that. No snap. No impact. Just the air shifting as momentum drained from his body like water pulled from cloth. His legs gave first. Then his chest folded. His arms dropped. Dylan hit the mat like something had unplugged him. No bounce, no resistance. Just down. The sound came a breath later, a dull, flat thud that echoed once and disappeared. No one clapped. No one spoke. The crowd didn't know what they'd just seen. The moment didn't match anything they'd practiced cheering for. It was too fast to celebrate, too quiet to follow. And yet, they all felt it. The ring lights didn't change. The cameras didn't cut away. Kayla stood in her stance for one more second, then stepped back. Her breathing stayed calm, her eyes steady, her hands lowered. The drone hovered, unsure where to look. A water bottle dropped in the front row. No one picked it up. The sound of it rolling was the only thing that moved in the room. The timer on the wall froze at 7. Commentary cut mid-sentence. A few screens glitched. The tech at the booth didn't move. He was staring at the mat. Dylan stayed down. Not unconscious. Just stopped. Like a machine that had been shut off without warning. His belt was twisted beneath him. His body didn't twitch. His face was blank. One student near the lockers whispered something, but no one heard what it was. They were all too busy trying to understand what had just happened. Because it wasn't a knockout. It wasn't even a win. It was something else. Kayla didn't raise her arms, didn't look at the audience. She just reset her stance and breathed once more, like she had expected this all along, like it was the natural outcome of stillness meeting force. People had come for a fight, but what they saw was control. What they witnessed was silence applied like pressure, and in that silence every hierarchy in the room cracked. No one knew how to respond. The trainer at the edge of the ring blinked slowly like waking up from a dream. A girl who had laughed earlier covered her mouth. Someone in the bleachers tried to clap, then lowered their hands. Dylan didn't get up. Kayla didn't move again. And the room didn't breathe. For a moment, that felt like minutes, everything held its place. Like the world had paused not out of fear, but in recognition. That what had just happened wasn't performance. It was truth. Quiet, precise, and undeniable. The side door opened with a soft click. No music, no announcement. Just the quiet shift of attention as a man in a charcoal blazer stepped into the room. He walked with purpose, every step silent on the polished floor. In his hand was a slim leather folder, unmarked, perfectly centered. His name was Marshall Keene. Most people in that room had only heard of him. Horizon Group didn't visit dojos. They bought them, trained them, owned them. But this was different. This wasn't a visit. It was an arrival. Marshall didn't stop to look around. His eyes moved once across the mat, scanning the stunned faces, the dropped phones, the silence still hanging from the ceiling. Then he saw her, Kayla, standing calm, unshaken like the entire room had been waiting to catch up. He walked forward and stopped in front of her. Not a word spoken, no hand extended. Instead, he bowed. Not a nod, a real bow. Full, formal arms, straight head lowered. A gesture so rare in a place like this it felt ceremonial. The room froze again, this time not in confusion, but in recognition. He said only one thing, Chairwoman Blake. No one laughed, no one whispered. The front desk staff turned toward the live stream console without being told. One coach near the lockers stepped back like he had misread the entire world. Someone dropped a clipboard. No one bent down to pick it up. Marshall held out the folder. 2 pages. A key card. Nothing else. Kayla took them silently. Signed where she needed to sign. Her expression didn't change. She didn't ask questions. She didn't have to. Marshall turned and spoke once, addressing everyone. The words were calm, but final. As of this morning, Horizon Group holds controlling interest in Redline. All operations now report through Chairwoman Blake. There were no shouts, no objections, just a long, full silence. The screens blinked. Dylan was still sitting on the mat, breathing quietly like the air had left something deeper than his lungs. A few instructors lowered their eyes, not in fear, but in respect. The kind that doesn't need training. In that single bow, the old structure fell apart. The performance ended, and the truth took its place. Power didn't yell. It walked in, nodded once, and changed everything without needing a second word. Kayla didn't raise her voice. She didn't step forward. She just stood still while the world adjusted around her. That silence said more than any victory reel ever could. The silence didn't break. It spread. Coaches didn't yell. Students didn't move. Screens flickered once as if unsure which version of the truth to display. Then quietly, the leaderboard reset. Kayla's name didn't appear under any belt rank. It appeared above all of them in a quiet admin tier, with no flair. The head coach's profile vanished from the display wall. No farewell, no ceremony. Just gone. The assistant who handed Kayla the cheap gloves disappeared from the staff directory an hour later. The scroll of Dylan's sponsors stopped mid-loop. His taglines and flashy stats dissolved from the projection screen without a trace. No one announced it. But the shift was obvious. People walked slower. Voices dropped. Those who used to laugh now glanced down when Kayla passed. Not out of shame, but in a quiet recalibration. They had misread the story, and now the page had turned. She returned to the bench near the ring. Her hands untied the white belt with care. Folded it once, then again, edges neat. She placed it on the bench exactly where she'd sat earlier. No claim, no flourish, just a quiet return of what had never truly defined her. No one asked her to stay. No one tried to stop her. She picked up the same worn gym bag, slung it over her shoulder, and walked to the door. A trainer near the entrance gave a subtle nod. The receptionist stood without being told, reaching to open the door. Kayla paused for a breath. Light caught her shoulder. Silence filled the room, but it wasn't awkward anymore. It felt earned. When the door closed behind her, nothing dramatic followed. No music, no cheer, just the weight of presence leaving behind something permanent. On the bench, the white belt stayed, folded still, no longer necessary.